So hello and welcome. I'm very happy to join you today, and I'm very happy to have you all of my in this session. Is new session for Introduction to the International Baccalaureate and the Conceptual Understanding. Actually, the aim of these sessions and the aim of to have this, if I can call it like a mini BDs, is actually to give people like a chance to know more about the program, to know more about an area for development, an area for improvement, whether they need to proceed with after this in an official way to have a certificate or to go for a official professional development offered by IB or any other organization, or they actually need to have it only by for themselves for their personal growth and development. So basically, I'm going to focus on a general introduction about the International Baccalaureate for the IB and how it's related to the conceptual understanding. Starting with this very simple question, what is IB? In introduction to many people might think it's a new organization of it's a new thing, it's a new era in the education. Actually, no, IB is originated since 1968, basically in Switzerland, right? Fikret, I know you are right now in Switzerland or in Austria, which is never to Swiss, not that far from there. So it started with the DB program, which was the first program IB offered as an organization, as an international education, trying to separate themselves with to any other educational system, to any other, let's say, normal or governmental system related to the British or an American system. So they started to think more globally, more wide, to see, yeah, we are going to offer this educational globally without connecting it to a specific area or a specific place, whether it's famous or not. So the core philosophy of the mission of the IB, it's critical thinking, intercultural understanding, trying to connect people, trying to have this global mindset, this international minded view to the education, trying to have this type of education where it's applicable to any place, to any culture, to any group of people, trying to make it inclusive as much as they can. So they are trying, if we are going to move on to their mission statement, we can see that they are trying, I might forgot to add the English one here. So I'm sure you are familiar with it. However, the IB mission statement is focused on developing caring people, caring, knowledgeable, and critical thinker people who they are trying to seek knowledge, trying to find knowledge from its sources, from different ways, and try to also evaluate this knowledge. Right now, IB is actually recognized over in 150 countries, and it's going to be more. Even the new, let's say, it's the new perspective for the IB to making this kind of agreement with governments around the world. I have witnessed, starting with the government schools in Egypt, which was in 2014, applying the IB. Of course, it has with like a partnership with other international schools in Egypt, but I have witnessed, and it's still happening until now. It's still functioning until now in Egypt. Recently, they had this agreement with Al Hariri group in Lebanon, and also in another government schools in Jordan. And I read it, they are starting with another agreement with the private sector in Sharjah and UAE. So it's a new perspective to include even more government school to give them this international perspective, this global education. For the IB, there is a core element. Where is it sharing before we are going to start to explore what is the IB programs and what's the IB offering as a IB programs. There is a core element which is actually common and shared by all the four programs they are going to do, and we are going to explain right now. First thing is the IB learner profile. The IB learner profile is actually coming from the name itself. which I really, really appreciate the name of learner, not other thing, not students, for example, not schoolers, like some American system trying to trying to call the students. I like the way they are saying it's a learner profile, because it gives us this impression, it gives us a perspective that we are still learning, whatever it is, in school or outside school, whether it is in during the let's say education period of time, where we are starting early, where we are young, and or moving forward by age, finishing college, whatever it is. So IB is trying to identify 10 learner attributes. So it's one learner, however, they are seeking to have this learner have 10 different attributes, which is varies between knowledgeable, risk taker, of course, risk taker, not reckless, which is something we are trying to always differentiate when we are introducing this learner profile attribute to our students. It doesn't mean you are a risk taker, you are doing a reckless behavior or uncounted or something it might makes you or expose you to any risk or any danger or whatever it is, whether it is a physical or even emotional, to being reflective, thinkers, inquirer. So it's the 10 attributes. If we actually have a moment to reflect on it, which one do you think it's actually grab your attention from these 10 attributes? Which one in particular?
I think like it's difficult question, but risk taker probably. Like you need to take risks for everything. You need to
Yeah,
leave comfort zone. So probably everything starts from taking risks. And of course, again, it's difficult to say that's the most important one, or
yeah,
probably it's like a caring. You should care before you start anything. So yeah.
sure. So we can say if we have like a deeper look to this learner attribute, learner profile attribute, we would say they have a one attribute and what make it balanced in another attribute. So if we are saying you have to be risk takers, we can say you are balanced in the same way. If we are trying to developing you as a learner to be knowledgeable, your knowledge shouldn't be for you only for yourself. You need to be also communicators, so you can communicate this knowledge and deliver it in another way. If we are trying to say we are trying to make you principles, so it's not only for you, you need to be also caring, so you can apply these principles you have actually acquired during your learning, so you can be caring. If you need to be reflective, you cannot do this without being open-minded to another ideas and another perspective and another culture. So it's actually, and that's why I chose this visual, which is like a puzzle. Everyone, it's one of the learner profile. It's actually connecting the other. It has this connection. It's not separated from each other, from another learner attribute. Moving forward to the other core element, which is the ATL skills or approaches to learning, which is one of the things is actually making IB very unique program. It's giving this, looking for how you can seeking this knowledge, how you can acquire this knowledge as you as a teacher, not as a facilitator, not as a source of knowledge. So they are dividing it into 5 big categories. Thinking skills, which we are focusing on processing and evaluating information. So how we can get this information, how we can processing it, thinking in it deeper, and also to be able to evaluate it, whether you are going to evaluate the knowledge itself, or you are going to evaluate the way you acquire this knowledge, or you are going to evaluate the source of that knowledge. Then research skill, which is the skills which is involved finding, evaluating again, and organizing information. Communication skill, of course, it's essential for effective written, oral interaction, and even if we try to apply it for the body language itself. Social skills, where we emphasizing on the teamwork and the interpersonal comprehension, and finally the self-management skills. If we also have a deeper look to this ATL skills, you can see it's definitely connected to the IP learner profile. The same way we are trying to develop these attributes, you are going to develop it by developing this skill in the students or within the students. Whether you are going to develop it explicitly by actually intentionally going to design a learning activity, you are going to design a curriculum or whatever it is to develop this certain skill, or implicitly while you are teaching, while you are having a discussion, or any other learning activity. So it's still connected to the first core element, which is the IP learner profile. Moving on to the other one, which is the ATT skill. Let me fix this. Yep, that's it. So the ATT, or approaches to teaching. Again, we are going to starting with the IP learner profile. Here is where we are focusing on the learner himself. We need to develop some learning skills, which is we are dividing in 5 categories, which is still related to the learner himself. However, you as an educator, you as a teacher, you need to use some approaches to teaching as well, to try to can make it happen, to bring it from the theory, from the written things to be applicable on the reality and linking it to the real world. In order to do this, or in order to achieve this purpose, we can do this through many things. Approaches to teaching has different categories and different ways, and too many actually, and they keep developing, and they keep people are writing research papers and doing more and more deep in their research to find more even approaches to teaching. However, the most, let's say, famous and the one which is we are using in the IP program is starting with the inquiry-based learning, where we are encouraging students to discover answer through posing questions. So questions and real-world scenarios leading to the knowledge. So instead of giving the student the information directly, we are starting to ask them a question where they are starting to think. As a language teacher, for example, I can go for a piece of grammar, and instead of telling the students, here is this sentence, and in the beginning you can see the noun, you can see the verb, you can see the pronoun, you can see the adjective, and instead of telling them what they are looking at in the sentence, I'm going to ask them, what does it mean? What did you understand from the sentence? Is it different between the first word and the second word and third word? If there is a difference, how can you describe this difference? Here the students are starting to think, starting to inquire, so they are moving to gain the knowledge based on what it comes to their minds. Then we are going to talk about it more in depth in the second part of this session, inshallah, is the concept-driven curriculum, which is we are going to focus in broader concepts. Rather than going to the piece of information, piece of knowledge, we are trying to connect it in a more holistic way. How this could happen in the reality. So instead, again, one of the examples I'm using as a language teacher, instead of telling students about the grammar rules, I'm trying to connect it to the concept of how the grammar, or how using language affecting your perspective to the world, or affecting to your perspective to the people around you. Can you give me another example for example, in your subject area? I know, Fakrat, you are a science teacher. Abdurrahman here also he's a language teacher. So if you can give me like one example from the science, for example.
Yeah, for example, science, I think it's much easier. You can start with the
Yeah,
experiment.
you're
You,
lucky.
yeah, so you can question, well, what just happened here?
Yeah,
So it happened. So most of the time we use those strategies in science, or let's say the last week I was teaching about the firework. I say, yeah, well, what's the science behind firework? Why they produce different colors? So, oh, actually, yeah, it produces different color. We use it. Well, what's the science behind it? So those kind of things, or I don't know. So at the time I used, we were talking about fraction distillation in crude oil, how to separate fractions. I thought, do you know actually how to set up fraction distillation? They said, no. I said, okay, so your task is to set up fraction distillation, but you
yeah,
cannot ask anything. You cannot use any internet sources, but you can use anything you want in the lab. So it was
yeah,
kind of puzzle for them. Oh, how we can set up this stuff. So it was kind of play based, but they were able to set at the end. So some students set upside down separators, but it was interesting for them. They learned. They say, oh, actually, I don't think that would work in this way. So let's try something else. And the next day I asked them, last time we spent time to set up the whole apparatus. Would you like to do experiment today? They say, oh yeah. And they did this in 3 minutes, you know. So
yep.
we know where's equipment, how to set up,
What
why we
what this actually affect your students, let's say, grading or results in exams or in assessments? What this affect them in a positive way, I mean?
yeah, they remember. They remember this because instead of lecturing them, I put them in a situation that they need to figure out why it happens or how it happens. So that kind of they remember that, oh yeah, 2 months ago we were struggling on that. That kind of
Exactly.
challenge. Once they find the answer, that happiness, they remember that happiness for a
So
long time.
connecting ideas, connecting knowledge, connecting these pieces of knowledge to the bigger concept, it makes them easier for them to recall this information, to remember it, and actually to use or reuse it and link it to a real world scenario. One thing I would like to pay your attention to actually also is for the concept. It's starting with the questions. Students start to think, start to making these connections, and then we shouldn't stop here. But one thing I actually encouraging you to, all to do always is to starting to asking students to create their own questions as well. Then they are going again to craft a questions related to their understanding to their concept, to this concept in particular, how they how they understand this concept, how they make it happen, how they actually acquire knowledge through this concept and try to organize it. Then, of course, developing the local and global context, which is sometimes we can accuse international education that we are trying to get students away from their local context or from their values, from their whatever morals or all of the things. Absolutely not. One thing we need to develop with the global context is the local context as well, making this connection, because we are trying to tell the students we now in this era of communication, AI, all of the things, all of these new things, we are not living alone. It's very easy to communicate. It's very easy to be with together. So how can you getting our building these lines and making these connections between your culture, your values, your morals, your your history, your place, your geography where you are living in here. How can you make this connection? Then in order to do this, we need to tailor teaching methods to meet diverse learning, which we call like differentiation, one of the most problematic concepts in education, whereas always we have these questions and how can we can apply differentiation, how we can achieve to have the differentiated classroom or differentiated task or differentiated activity. Yeah, it's not that hard actually, but it's another topic to speak about. But right now, one of the things for the core elements of IB is to including, to offer this inclusive education to everyone, meeting these diverse learning needs, styles, resources, strategies, and so on. The same thing is to foster this international mindedness. And there is a difference between this global context and the international mindedness. International mindedness is more holistic. It's where they can put the global and local context together, so we can say this is the international mindedness. Global context, you still can make it related to certain area, to certain age, to certain part of the world. You can make the connection between it and the local and the global. Together, both, it's having these two pieces, which is concrete, or we can construct this international mind. And of course, trying to embracing multimodality, utilize various resources, not actually one resources, whether it is traditional, which I have no problem at all with traditional learning. Sometimes you need to lecture students. Sometimes you need to stand in front of your classroom and trying to tell them exactly what they need to learn and how they can achieve it. However, using more or different resources for their learning, it makes them accommodate different learning preferences. And then collaborative learning, where we are trying to encourage discussion. And collaborative learning, it's not only about the group work or group projects. Group work is part of the collaborative learning. Collaborative learning can be done individually, while the students, each one of them, involved in one learning activity, and then he can communicate the knowledge he acquired or she acquired to other member of the classroom. Then this is a collaborative learning, even the most of the work of the most of the learning happening individually, but still it's a collaborative learning. So group working is one minor part of collaborative learning. It's not only this one, because I know that many teachers are looking for collaborative learning, and what the thing is coming to their mind is it's only group working. Then moving on to the international mindedness, which we are actually covered many times here. However, international mindedness with the culture appreciation and empathy, it's both giving this the flavor of the IB. So being in this international mindedness, while you still appreciate your own culture and other culture, respecting it, it doesn't matter to convince with other people what they believe in it. It's still fine to believe that others' beliefs is wrong, if I can say that. It's still fine. You can believe it. You can respect it. They believe their belief. I believe their belief is wrong. I believe their actions wrong. I can tell this to myself. However, I'm still respecting this. I'm still valuing and appreciating people who are doing this. I might not involve in their actions. I might not involve in their beliefs. That's fine. That's totally fine. However, it doesn't mean at all that I am trying to downgrade what they believe. I'm not trying to say I'm going to see myself as a better person because this is my belief, or this because it is my culture. And that's why we are looking for this ethical consideration, addressing this global ethics and trying to appreciate people beliefs and appreciate people, other groups of people, culture and values. It makes us having this ethical consideration. It started from the learner. However, it started also from the teacher. It started from the learning community, involving parents, involving administration, involving whoever be in the learning community. And finally, it's a collaborative action where we are trying to encouraging students to take action towards the global issue. I know, Fikret, you are, and I know Abdurrahman as well, you are familiar somehow with the DB. And now for the DB, we are focusing on the global issue and the sustainable goals from the UN and different sustainable goals. It's all about encouraging students to take actions. It's not more about, yeah, I know you have this perspective. You are now, you are conscious, you know what's happening around you, you are aware. We are developing this global awareness. Now it's time to move. It's time to take action. It's time to be positive. So these are the core elements where they all IB programs are sharing, starting from the PYB where we are going to start right now, moving all the way to reach the CB. Any questions before I carry on? All good? Great. So what are the IB programs? As we mentioned, IB started with the diploma program as the first program to offer to the learning community. However, right now we have 4 programs: the primary years program, the middle years program, and these 2 programs where they are together in the same age range or the same age level. Primary years program, where the students are actually focusing on the transdisciplinary teaching, where it is all components and all ideas is sharing one unit, one goal in the unit or one objective in this unit. That's why we have 6 themes in the PYP program. We have this 6 themes. We're building blocks for learning: who we are, where we are in place and time, how we express ourselves, how the world works, and how we organize ourselves and sharing the planet. These 6 themes actually making the learning or the planning for the learning itself, where we are trying to develop the main idea of the theme in each unit of research, of each inquiry unit, where students trying to focus on one theme, and we trying to develop the theme across different disciplines, whether it's across language, whether it's across art, science, math, whatever it is. So the main flavor, if I can say, for the PYB is the transdisciplinary learning, where it's all connected, where it's all serving one purpose and one goal, how we can reach this among our discipline. It doesn't mean we are going to neglect totally the knowledge in this discipline. It's still there, it's still planning for it. However, rather than just focusing on the knowledge in this discipline, we are trying to connecting it to one theme of the 6 themes among all other disciplines. That's why when we are talking in the PYB about the assessment, we are always saying it's a continuous assessment. It's more about formative assessment than the summative assessment, because we are not trying to test the students' knowledge, rather than we are trying to build this knowledge, to build this blocks for learnings. It doesn't matter how much knowledge they acquire in these years. It's about how they can connecting this knowledge and they can building on it to moving on in each year in the primary years program. Moving on to the middle years program, whereas we are trying to bridging these gaps. Here we are starting to building these blocks between 6 themes. Now we are trying to make it a little bit different and a little bit separate. Yes, Abdurrahman.
In the PYP, are there specific curriculum or external curriculum beside the national education, or there's not curriculum in PYP?
PYP or an IB in general, it's a framework where we can embed it whatever you need, whether it's coming from the national education, whether it's coming from any outsource you can choose in your planning and in your unit plans. So there is no specific things. It's still requirements you need to meet, whether it's in PYB or in MYB. You can use whatever resources you need to meet in order to meet these requirements. In the PYB, they are trying to divide it in many different areas, like a learner and the learning and the community and agency. So it's a bit different, the different aspects on different areas than the MYB or MDB. However, it's still, there is a requirement they need to meet, so they can use whatever it is. That's why the planning in PYB is happening in 2 stages. First, in the grade level, where is all teachers sitting together to plan, and then when in the on the discipline or in the subject level itself. So that's why it's happening in 2 levels. Moving forward to the MYB, where it is providing a framework that encourages students to make a practical connection. Here is we are trying to separate it to subject groups, where we have 8 subject groups. Rather than trying to make it only focus on one idea, now it's time to bridging this gap and focus more on the discipline. Starting from language and literature, and in the IB perspective, language and literature, or language A, it's a mother tongue and language of instruction in the school. Whatever it's the language of instruction in the school, we consider it as a language A, which is fall in this first category, language and literature. And then language acquisition, which is whatever language as a second language for the students offered in the school, individual and societies, sciences, and sciences. We in MYB, it's starting like a general sciences from MYB 1 to 3, from grade 6 to 8, and then we are making it separate for physics, chemistry, and bio, and in MYB 4 and 5. Math, arts, whether it's visual or performing arts, physical and health education, which is not playing at all. It's still a very difficult and a very demanding program. And then design, which is when we are going to the DB now, we will find that physical and health education actually is part of science, where a student focusing on how the body work and function, and how what other elements affecting it, and all of the things, which is really trying to make students feel or think it's not just about playing games, or even know how to play these games. Because sometimes students are focusing on, yes, we have a unit plan where our teacher is talking about football or a basketball, then he is going to teach us how to play football, how to play basketball. Yes, part of it, you will learn some rules and how to do this. However, this is not the purpose here. He is not a coach, he's still a teacher, and this is not a game. It's still a discipline, it's still a subject where you have to assessment and you have a grades as well. Even when we are talking about the MYB and it's still focusing on disciplines themselves, we still have some interdisciplinary learning happening here when we are trying to go for the IDU or interdisciplinary unit plan. In this interdisciplinary units, we're trying to integrate 2 or more subjects from 2 or more subject groups where we spoke about recently. So when we are trying to focus on one topic, for example, in individual and society, and we are trying to find this knowledge in language and literature or in science, and mixing it or integrating it in interdisciplinary units. In this interdisciplinary unit, students students are studying or are trying to acquire knowledge based on these 2 or more disciplines. That's why one big mistake, most of the teachers fall in this one, where they are trying to teach this unit separately and trying to apply the criteria of assessment criteria from their subject on it. The interdisciplinary unit has their own subject criteria, and it should have this co-teaching, if I can say. It should have this integrating the knowledge in these 2 subjects. It's not about choosing some information in my subject, and Mr. Fikret were going to choose some information from science, and Mr. Abdurrahman going to choose another subject, another information from his subject, and we all trying to teach it separately, and then just asking students how it's connected. It doesn't work like this. For interdisciplinary units, which is another also big topic we can focus on later, inshallah, but in interdisciplinary units, we are trying to making this connection and trying to make the students themselves consider this connection and to know how to make this connection between subject groups and subject knowledge itself. In addition to keep this connection between subject groups, we have the personal project, where the students need to need to have by end of the MYB and MYB 5 or grade 10. Students need to choose one topic that shows their personal interest and it's also related to something they learned during the MYB. And do this investigation, choosing this topic and produce a product based on these two things and on these two elements. If I'm interested in technology, I saw some students are going to say, okay, I'm interested in the technology. I'm going to build a PC. I'm going to build a computer using, for example, some of the recycling materials that we had in science when we learned about the recycling, for example. So they are using the something they already learned and related to their learning and making this connection to their personal interest, which is technology, and produce to us this product. Some of the students are really like arts, however, they are also like to write. So they think, okay, we learned in visual art, for example, how to design these things and how to making these dots and shapes and all of the things. So I'm going to write a comics based on my personal interest because I love to write. I love to write stories, for example, or poem or whatever, but I'm going to use what I learned in art to produce this product as a small comics book or an ebook, even using any digital tool. So personal project is still one other way to make this connection between discipline, one other way to make this connection between subjects. We also have this community project which is happening in MYB4. However, it's not mandatory by the school to do it. The personal project, it's mandatory for all schools to have a personal project by end of MYB5, but for the community project, it's still not mandatory. However, it's recommended by the school to start to encourage students to do the community project where the students trying to find something to help this community, like doing a charity campaign, to visiting like an orphan place or refugees or whatever it is. Moving on to the DP, where is here we are trying to prepare students. Yes, Mr. Abdurrahman.
I will go back with you to MYP subjects.
Okay.
I noticed that social studies is not included in this subject. Although more than one school in Egypt teach social studies as an IB subject. Is it right or wrong?
It's absolutely right. It is here in group 3, individual and societies.
Social studies beside individual and societies.
No, they are just for example, in Egypt and in any Arabic countries, they are introducing it as a national curriculum in Arabic, and the other curriculum or the English one, they are choosing it under individual and societies, but still it's fall in this category, individual and society. So it's absolutely right. They are just using two different curriculum, one in Arabic and one in English.
The second question, do IB schools have a permission to add any subject which want, and if is it allowed, which criterions will we use to evaluate it?
It's a totally different subject, of course, but there is something we call the school-based curriculum, where students where schools can create their own curriculum. I heard this happening in Latin America because they have some requirements and they need to develop their school-based curriculum, and they're getting approval from the IB about this curriculum. So they can do this if there is a requirement or a local requirement, and it's called like a school-based syllabus. And on my IB, there is some samples of it.
Criterions?
It's totally different things. It's absolutely totally different topic, and it has a lot of criteria, and it went through many stages. Yeah, so it's totally different things now. It will take the whole session to speak about this.
Thank you,
yeah,
Doctor.
but you can find some samples about it on my IB.
Thank you, Dr. Maged.
You're welcome. So moving on to the BP program, here we started to building blocks in PYB, bridging the gap in MYB, and here we are preparing for the future, where students are more now focusing more on what they need to learn or what they need to continue their studying in college. That's why you can see this 8 subject groups shrinks to be 6 subject groups. Studying for language and studies in language and literature, language acquisition, individual and societies, which is the largest group, actually group 3. It has a lot of subjects like geography, history, economics, business, political science, world religion, a lot of subjects. Sciences, which is including now physical and health education and design technology as well. So it's not only physics, chemistry, biology, it has more than that, and mathematics and the arts. Requirement for the DB students is to have 1 subject from each subject group, except the last one, the arts. They can replace it, and you can choose another subject group from any other from the previous 5 subject groups instead of arts, if they don't feel they need to study anything in visual arts or in performing arts. They prefer to have 1 more subject in science, for example, 1 more subject in individual and societies. And sometimes, for the sake of equivalency, students they have to have 1 more subject, for example, in science. Now I'm in Kuwait, and I know for the equivalency here, they need to see some names for the subject for physics and chemistry and biology. So now the DB students need to have more than 1 subject in science if they are planning to go to study medicine, for example. So this, for the sake of the equivalency, even though it's not mandatory from the IB to have it, it could be only 1 subject, but sometimes the school context itself, it's forcing students to choose 1 subject because of the country context and or the school context itself. Also, for the studies in language and literature, students need to choose 1 language A. However, if they choose 2 languages as a language A, they can drop the language acquisition and not choose anything from language acquisition at all. Each subject, each one of these subjects offered in IB in 2 levels, standard levels and higher level. Standard level with, I'm not saying the basics, but I mean the essential information for the subject itself. And the higher level is more advanced with the students, and that's why it has more even teaching hours. Students need to have the full diploma. They need to choose 3 subjects in higher level and 3 subjects in standard level. How they decided? It decided based on what they need, is what they are going to have or what they are going to study in the college. So they need to have 3 subjects in the standard level and 3 subjects in higher level. Could they have more in higher level? Yes, they can have 4 subjects in higher level. Could they have more? It's still a gray area. I had this conversation and I had this discussion once in 1 workshop, and we found it never happened before to have like students have 5 subjects in higher level, and we found it's kind of actually overwhelming. I wouldn't say impossible, but it's really overwhelming to have 5 subjects, even 4 subjects in higher level. It's still overwhelming. However, some students actually had 4 subjects in higher level. Yes, Mr. Fikret.
Yeah, that's a great topic to discuss.
Yeah.
We had students, twins. They were talented, absolute talent. You know, like
Wow.
you say the students only once, whatever you
Okay.
want to say, just once, and these students will remember this forever. So they were true talent. So they chose all subjects in HL in the beginning, but then later on they dropped to 4. They say no,
Okay.
we cannot do it. So it's really overwhelming because of lots of deadlines, the task. So that's why like a 4, I think higher level is a maximum students can
Yeah.
do, because I know very talented. Those twins are I say like I haven't seen any other talent. So those were I think the best, but they couldn't do it. They say yeah, 4 HL is a maximum, we can do it.
Wow. And for the system, you didn't register them to IBIS for 5 subjects in HL or 6 subjects in
No,
HL.
no, initially they agreed to take
Yeah.
it all just to see like what they can do, but then they say after 2 months they say no, that's it, we cannot
It's
do
too
it.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember actually this discussion, and yeah, the 6 subjects is really too much. I saw like I can recall in my mind now 2 students who they actually took 4 subjects in HL, but I didn't see at all 5 or 6. And actually, even having these 2 twins or these 2 students who actually decided even to go for it, even for 2 months, it's fascinating for me. Really, really impressive. So yeah, for this subject, for the subject groups in DB, you need to choose 3, as we said, for higher level and 3 in standard level. In addition, to still we have this connection between subjects, we have the core subjects, where it's in common between this all subject. That's why we are saying, or we are calling it the core subject. It is the element which is making this all subject connected to themselves. We have the extended essay, where the students need to have an independent research in a topic chosen by the students in one subject group, in one subject area he chose by himself to write an essay for 4,000 words. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's happening in 2 years. Each student has a supervisor with certain criteria to meet in order to achieve this 4,000 words. They need to develop their research topic and the research question as well. And then my favorite, the TOK, or theory of knowledge, where the students challenging their abilities to think about the nature of knowledge, how we can acquire it, what's the ways of knowing, where and how we can evaluate this knowledge, how we can actually think or define something as a knowledge, which is starting with it's a very philosophical, if I'm pronouncing it right. It's coming from the philosophy itself. However, it's still really challenging. It's if we can introduce it in the right way, I find it's very enjoyable for the students. I saw students finding the TOK very boring. They don't want to go for the TOK lesson. They find it very difficult. They couldn't actually find the meaning behind having this subject. And other students find it's really enjoying the discussion, really enjoying the writing the essay, preparing for the exhibition, thinking in all these questions, trying to differentiate between what we are calling it first order question and second order questions. They finding it very enjoying, and they are really enjoying each moment during the class. And then we have the CAS, Creativity Activity Service, which is a framework where the students are trying to find or experience learning that involves something creative related to the artistic pursuits or physical activities and community service as well. So this is the DB, which is really demanding, really challenging. However, I always refuse to say it's very hard. It's not hard, it's not impossible, it's demanding and it's challenging. And the key word in it it's time management. The only problem students really face with the DB when they cannot manage their time effectively. They cannot having this short-term plans and long-term plans, that's why when we started the session talked about the ETL skills and the time management, and one of the skills students need to acquire and need to master is to both short-term plans and long-term plans. They have too many deadlines, too many assignments, and yes, they are in rush, and yes, they know that the teacher will not stop and waiting for them, and they need to actually following and need to plan ahead for their studying. So that's the key word for me, is the time management for the DP. Because of the DB, it's really challenging, and sometimes students are feeling it is way far from what they need to pursue in their lives or the career. Still, IB started a new program which is called career-related program, or CB, where is the students trying to combine the academic courses coming from the DB with the career-related studies, where they are focusing only on career, that's why career or CB, it aims to prepare students for both future career or further education and employment in a specific field. It's still, I know it's not that new program. However, it's still not so many schools around the world having CP. It's starting to, schools are now interesting more, and many students actually now asking if we can offering CP or not. And most of the schools, when they having the accreditation for DB, starting to then following it with the CB, which is giving the students more options, which is, I feel it's giving or open more doors for the students who are struggling or need to complete their studies in IB and continue this without having this challenging or demanding requirements happening in DB. However, they still need to have 2 DB courses. They are not getting rid completely from the DB. They still need to have 2 DB courses in addition to this career-related studies. Also, they need to have a proficiency in 1 additional language for a global awareness. So they are not getting rid completely from everything related to the DB. It's still challenging because sometimes students feeling like, okay, it's very easy. I'm going to the CB and I will get my certificates very easy, and it's not demanding like the DB, and I don't have deadlines. And no, you still have all of these things, and you still have internal assessment, and you have still external assessment, and you still have demanding and requirements you need to meet in order to achieve your goal and in order to actually obtain the CB certificate. Until this point, this is the 4 programs for the IB. This is what the IB actually as an organization now offering to the world. Any questions regarding these 4 programs? Perfect. Now the conceptual understanding, which is, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Ellen Erickson or not, with this name. Well, this will be your homework. Go and find out more about Ellen Erickson and about even the conceptual understanding on the concept-based learning certificate, which is very demanding. And as you are in the IB and you are in IB field, you need to know more about this one. But the key features for the conceptual understanding, it is about focusing more about how and why rather than what. It's focusing more about the knowledge, how we can making this interconnecting, understanding different concepts, and more than memorizing it. That's why that we are saying for the conceptual understanding, it doesn't have a specific or only definition, one definition, only one specific definition. It could be more, it could has more than one definition. That's why I didn't put any specific definition for conceptual understanding right here, but this is the key features of it. It's interconnectedness, understanding how different concepts related to each other. It's transferable, so students can be able to transfer knowledge and concepts between discipline, and making this or using this concept they have learned to a real world situation. It's flexible, so it can fit different contexts, whether it is global or local, as we mentioned before. It's helping to improve critical thinking, which is analyzing this information, forming the judgment, and evaluating evidence. The 3 key points for critical thinking is how to gain this information, this knowledge, trying to give them, to analyze it, and trying to form this judgment based on what evidence and what actually can we call it an evidence? So we need to evaluate it. And then it's making the students or learners, as we said, a lifelong learner. It's improving or building this desire and curiosity to explore new ideas and foundation for further learning. And so it's not ending by one phase. Conceptual understanding, it's very important because it is, as we said, it's developing the critical thinking, which can be used to problem solving. This problem solving, it's not necessary by literally by meaning of problem. It's whatever it's happening to you, whether it is in your during your learning, during your education, or even in your life, in your real life. Whatever situation you are going to face, how can you tackle these complex problems? How you can apply your new knowledge in a new ways and in a new context, which is leading also to be innovative, to start to thinking in new ways, to be creative, to generate new ideas and solutions. And again, it's happening for lifelong learning. And the reason I'm actually putting the critical thinking and lifelong learning twice here, because I believe personally, conceptual understanding is the two main area, is the two main points. That's what we actually benefit from conceptual understanding. Developing this critical thinking. So no one, if you allow me to use this, can fool us with any misunderstanding or misconceptual and giving us something we cannot evaluate, we cannot rely on, and then we are not stop learning at all, whether it is we are still students or we complete our regular education, but we still looking and seeking knowledge for life, inshallah. Well, this is all for this session today. The purpose for it is to give like a very broad perspective, a very broad lens, an introduction to the IB and the conceptual understanding. It's all yours if you have any questions. I'm all ears here. Yes, Mr. Abrahman.
In the DB subject, do the student have a free to change subject after he selected, or?
Yes, they can change it, and it depends on the regulation in the school. Normally, we are allowing students to change subject in the first 3 months of starting year 11. Normally, we are allowing them to change it. However, some schools will not allow students after 3 months or starting from semester 2, for example. Some students faces like really challenging, really problem, so we can allow them in a certain situation. But in this way, we need to explain and to be very clear that you already missed a big chunk of knowledge here and big chunk of learning. So you need to be aware that you need to recap it if you would like to change the subject. So it depends on the regulation in it, but normally we are allowing them to change it in the first 3 semester or 3 months.
But after DB1, he can't change.
By DB2, no way. Especially if after they registering it in the IBIS, no way we can do this now. And actually, it will not be like what I'm saying, applicable choice. It will not be even a reasonable choice. No way they can do it.
Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome. So if it's all, Mr. Fikret, if you have any question, yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for the fabulous presentation. I'd appreciate it. It was really detailed, professional. It was great. Thank you so much for your time. And in terms of conceptual understanding, I know you have seen several examples of conceptual understanding in different classrooms. Could you please just tell the best ones that you have seen in a classroom?
In a classroom?
In action? Yeah.
In action, definitely inquiry-based learning. There's a way we are I'm always saying it's the best way you can using and you can apply to move from what to why and how. It's where you are actually finding a very a very, I would say, interested topic to the students interesting, and trying to explore this topic and try to connect to whatever knowledge you need through this topic. I know that we are all limited by requirements. Sometimes it's a local requirement. Sometimes it's a certain curriculum requirement. However, I believe as teachers, if we have this desire to be a lifelong learner, we still can find these topics, and we still can design this activity. I remember when I was teaching DB, for example, it was when it's still new about in media and news about the black holes, and the NASA when they can getting this picture for it, and everyone is talking about Stephen Hawking. I was an Arabic teacher, and Stephen Hawking wasn't that well-known name in Arabic language or in Arabic literature, or if I can say. So I started to get some articles from different magazines and from different newspapers about Stephen Hawking, and we started discussing it. And when I was designing the activity, the learning activity itself, I tried to make a comparison between how we can expressing our ideas about a foreign figure, non-Arabic famous figure, and also how we can express our ideas about a new discovery and a new scientific method in Arabic. So students starting to look in it in a different perspective, away from traditional learning. And I was telling them, if I'm using this sentence, and if I'm using this this way of expression, how far you understand this idea in another way, and I'm putting another sentence and another expression, but in a different way, how you can make this difference between these two. And if you, as a student in grade 11, so this was for grade 11, and if you are a grade 11 student trying to explain this idea to your colleague, how would you use different styles, language style to express it? And if you are going outside the school and trying to find someone in the street and trying to explain it. So in my opinion, inquiry-based learning, giving you this all activities. Actually, some of the students trying to apply it with the workers in the school, and trying to stop one of them in the corridor and asking him about, did you hear about Stephen Hawking before? And of course he didn't. And then they starting to explain it to him, and they came back to me and telling me, yes, when we use the language, the language we actually using in the classroom, he didn't understand what we are saying. But now we're starting to find other words and to find other language, so we can tell him more about this new figure and this new discovery. It is my opinion and for the conceptual understanding. Any other questions? Thank you, Fikret. Thank you so much for attending this session. Hopefully it was beneficial. I was expecting more, but I'm actually more than happy to have you both guys. I really appreciate that you have time to attend this session, and hopefully we can have more sessions, inshallah, in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Dr.
much.
Maged. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Abdurrahman. Thank you, Fikret.
Have a nice
See
day.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.